Hi, my name is Leah Day, and welcome to this video for the Free Motion Quilting Project. Today I'd like to share with you another new design. This one is called Permed Fern, and it's kind of a variation of two oldie goldies, two designs that are really popular on the Free Motion Quilting Project, Swirling Feathers and Tongue of Flames. Those are two of my favorites, so I love taking a favorite design and changing it up a little bit and coming up with something new. So today I'm going to show you this, and we're going to stitch it out for the first time on a little 4-inch square because, again, I'm a little worried that if I put it directly into our quilt, into Express Your Love, I might pick the wrong space and it might not look all that good. So let's give it a try first on this 4-inch square. So here you can see I've got my square ready to go and a nice outline stitching, and I do all this outline stitching in free motion. I don't take this square off and do that with a walking foot. I think that this is really good practice for free motion quilting simply because it forces you to stitch those straight lines, and it's faster. I didn't have to change feet, I didn't have to break thread. I stitched my square and now I'm ready to start filling. So let's get started with Permed Fern. First I'm going to stitch just a small stem, just like that. And it's just a little spirally stem. And I'm going to leave this as a single line. That's kind of the theme of this design, is those short little curls. When I was a little girl, getting a permanent was kind of a big deal. So I remember these cute little curls. So now we travel stitch back and we're going to curl off the edges of our Permed Fern with these little spirals. And you can see that this is kind of a time-consuming design. It's a lot of travel stitching, and that's okay. Just take your time, curl up and around, and then travel stitch back. Notice how slowly I'm stitching. This is how slowly I have to go in order to maintain a good amount of control over the square, over my stitching line. So it's not pedal to the metal at all. I'm going quite slowly. I'm going to work my way back up and around to the tip of that stem that we started with, and I'm just curling these out, filling up the space. I have to expand them just a bit sometimes, just to make sure that they fill up the space completely. I don't want to leave any gaps. I also have to shrink them down as I come inside of this inside curve. It's just good to kind of keep everything in mind. And this is the first time I'm stitching this, so it's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. What I'm focusing on more than anything else as I'm stitching this is speeding up. So I kind of press my foot pedal just ever so slightly to speed up as I stitch the initial shape, and that gets me a nice stitch length for the initial shape. And then I slow right back down again as I'm travel stitching back. And so really I'm focusing more than anything else right this moment on speed control. And it's a very subtle thing. I'm not moving my foot pedal very much, but you can definitely hear the difference between whenever I go fast and when I go slow. So there we go. We turn that end into a nice little curl. Okay. So that is the basic steps of the design. You stitch your stem, then you work off of that stem with more of these curling, swirling perm fronds, I guess we'll call them. Okay, so now I'm going to travel stitch back and kind of look for an opening. And I space these out pretty well, and there's not really a nice gap for me to work through. And I'm just going to have them curl out here. Basically, you're just looking for a gap. I'm just going ahead and curl into a perm frond right there. That looks good. You're just looking for a gap between, and really I could have gone through any of these and that would have been just fine. You're just looking for a gap to kind of branch off and form a brand new stem. And then of course travel stitch all the way back. I like travel stitching back to the beginning simply because that's the way my brain fills best, but if you wanted to start filling from this tip out here, that would be perfectly fine. You can also change up the direction that your perm fronds are curling. So in the other way I had them kind of curling up, and this way I'm going to have them kind of curling downward like this. There's a lot of different things that you can play with, and there's no right or wrong way to stitch this. It's whatever works best for you. And you can see I had that little gap in my travel stitching. Well, that is no big deal. I'm going to stitch right through the middle of it and fill it up with more thread, and no one will be the wiser about that little gap that I had. Mistakes are always relative. They're not ever really mistakes. You know, if you take that, let's say you made a mistake if I didn't travel stitch that stem perfectly from the very beginning. Well, so long as I didn't travel stitch all the stems in the whole block perfectly from the beginning, then no one would know what I had originally intended. So, like I said, mistakes are relative. You can get away with a lot more than you think. Again, I'm just very carefully pressing down on my foot pedal just a little bit more as I stitch out, and then slowing right back down again as I stitch back, as I travel stitch back. It's not a very big difference in movement. I'm not slamming my foot to the floor and then pulling it all the way back out again. I am really, I mean, it's probably less than 1/4 of an inch of more pressure is really about it. And I don't have a third camera, so I can't shoot a shot of my foot moving on the foot pedal at the same time as this, but I promise it's a very, very subtle movement that my foot is making. So I've got this little last gap here. I'm going to just fill it in with maybe 1 or 2 more spirals, just like so. So to move on, all I do is just repeat that same set of steps. I would probably come in here with a little spiral, something that would fill in that space, and then I'd work basically from right to left in another row. I do like this movement, left to right and then right to left. That's just the way my brain works, though. It's worth giving it a try and seeing how it would work best for you. So that's it for this video on Permed Fern. It's a beautiful design, but as you can tell, it takes a lot of control and careful play with your foot pedal. It's one of those things, getting control over your foot pedal and the speeds of your machine at any point in time. This is not a pedal to the metal kind of thing. I know that that was historically kind of the advice given to everyone getting into free motion is mush your foot, foot pedal to the floor, you want to go fast. And the fact is that works for certain designs. There are certain designs that, yes, you do want to go at an increased speed because your hands are going to be moving fast because you're comfortable with it. But I don't know about you, I've never drawn something like this, so I don't know that stitching it is going to be something that's going to happen very quickly. I mean, if you want perspective on that, compare stitching this design with maybe cat hairball filler. That's making big circular E shapes, just stacking them, overlapping them, very chaotic, very crazy. It's essentially the same as kids scribbling, so it would be basically a comparison of kid outlining, very, very carefully trying to stay on the line, trying to stay right where you need to be, versus complete scribbling, total loss of control. So compare those two together. You're obviously not going to stitch at the same speeds for both of those things. So keep that in mind. Good foot control over your machine is going to be the key to so many things, and it's going to be the key that takes time and effort and energy to build. This is not something that I learned overnight. This is not something that came to me immediately. It was many, many quilts, challenging myself to stitch designs like these on a very intensely small scale. It was also the challenge of every time I flipped it over and I saw, maybe I stitched too many times in one space and I had a knot on the back of the quilt, I'd pick that out. That was a focus on perfection, and it ended up driving me a little crazy, but it is good in the sense that it taught me what was working with my foot pedal and what wasn't. I could tell immediately if I was maybe pressing down too hard, going too fast, trying to rush through something. So it's a good thing to be mindful of, but don't agonize about perfection. This might be a design that you can't stitch initially. Keep practicing, keep drawing, keep playing with it, and I'm sure that it's going to work out great. And here's what it looks like whenever you finish Permed Fern. So that's it for this video. My name is Leah Day, and this has been a video for the Free Motion Quilting Project. Find hundreds of more videos on many beautiful designs, all stitched out and available for free for you to watch and enjoy. find it all at freemotionproject.com. Until next time, let's go quilt.